Children of a Karen, what is it like? When I was a child, everything was someone else's fault. We'd speak to managers in stores, restaurants, etc. When I came of age, I joined the military and moved away as fast as possible. As an adult, my relationship with her was terrible. I was so frustrated by her asking me to come back to visit her area every time we talked, that I just stopped talking to her. Something particularly interesting had happened this past year. I went home to see my grandma on dad's side as she was passing. I called my mom and told her I was taking an emergency trip and would be in the area but wouldn't have time to see her. Her response? "That's fine. I understand your family needs you." I was beside myself. I had known that she was working on herself for a while, but living so far away and speaking so little, I hadn't witnessed it. 5 years ago, she would have demanded that I leave my dying grandma to come see her. I came back to the area the next month and we discussed it more. She said that she realized that a lot of problems in her life and a lot of the unhappiness stems from selfishness. I am incredibly proud of the changes she's made in her life, and it has forced me to reevaluate my own actions pertaining to our strained relationship and my life as a whole. And I've come to a conclusion. I'm just like her. I'm just like her. I relate to this on a spiritual level. My mother has the same issues with her mother that I have with her, and I know if I have kids, I'm just going to repeat the cycle. So I refuse to have children just in case I'm never able to exorcise that demon. My dad is a male Karen. I always hated listening to him call customer service on the phone, because he is such a complete butthole to whoever is just trying to do their job. My mom is a reformed Karen. When I was a kid, she used to treat people in customer service like trash. When I was a teenager and in customer service positions, it finally dawned on her what a terrible human being she was being. She's turned around and been great ever since. I'm proud of her to recognize her faults and fix them. This makes me think of parents who are full on fire and brimstone against homosexuals until their kid comes out as gay and suddenly whoosh 180. I guess it's great that people change their views, but it's quite crazy how insular we are. Often as a species at least, until something directly affects us. My mom is somewhat of a Karen, mostly in regards to restaurants, and I have an anxiety disorder. It's a combination made in heck. My sister is a Karen in recovery, and her teenage kids are mortified by her. They had a Karen intervention with her a few months ago, and pointed out that about 1 out of every 3 visits to a restaurant results in a meal or a drink sent back, and about 1 in 10 results in a conversation with the manager. Unresolved complaints over the phone practically have a pre-written script. This is unacceptable. Poor customer service, etc. She's trying to be more self-aware because she now recognizes that not only can her behavior be embarrassing, but she's a Karen caricature. If someone described the typical Karen by looks, age, race, tone of voice, social standing, they would be describing her to a T. Sure, it's Karen shaming, but we're living in a society here. There's literally nothing wrong with Karen shaming. Frankly, it's embarrassing. You have to sit there while they shriek at a manager and cause a big scene. If you try to chime in, you get yelled at, then they are in a bad mood the rest of the day. I've sat through hour-long debates with managers over 11 cents disparity on a bill. Everyone is looking at you and you are just kind of trapped there. When my siblings and I were younger, she was great, but she's become more insufferable as she's gotten older. She has 2 voices, a talking to us voice and a talking to other people voice. Her other people voice is very serial killer like. She tells us not to shop at certain stores or stay at certain types of hotels when we travel because they are ghetto. She is never ever wrong. For anything. Even when I tear an argument of hers to shreds, she makes me apologize. I've never received an apology from her in my life, even when she screamed in my face for absolutely no reason. She's not exactly the let me speak to your manager type, but she will leave places crappy reviews on Google or Facebook if she doesn't like the service. Speaking of which, she is the queen of Facebook. The first couple months of the pandemic, she wouldn't stop posting about how we all need to go back to living. Now that the protests have started, she's been ranting about how she didn't sit in the house for 2 months for it to be ruined by protesters. I've had to learn to just ignore it and be thankful I don't live with her anymore. It may also be worth mentioning my mom is a second generation Karen. My grandma is the literal textbook definition of Karen. She's almost 80 years old and I still can't go to restaurants with her because I never know what she's going to say or do. My generation's Karen seems to be my brother. However, my fiance already knows that if I ever start showing any traits of Karen then he is to immediately put me out of my misery. Your fiance is brilliant. Me and my ex had a code word for when I started to act like my mother, who isn't a Karen but not somebody I want to turn into. The code word was only used once early on in our relationship, so I'd say it's going okay so far. My grandma is banned from most stores in 3 counties. Before my hometown turned into a regular suburb, it was a semi-rural small town. In those times I could bring up her name and strangers would cringe. She wasn't a regular Karen though. She's an unapologetic white supremacist. So, I don't blame them. We haven't spoken with her in a decade or so. My grandma is banned from most stores in 3 counties. I read that as countries. I must be used to the internet, cause I just accepted it. It was humiliating. My mother treated everyone in the service industry as if they were idiot peasants placed there to serve her exclusively. However, she usually never brought her children out in public, so I was spared the majority of her behavior. She has always looked shockingly young for her age and it always seemed like she had kids really young, so that was a part of it. The other part was that she hated how I looked. We're an Asian family and I was always overweight, a complete taboo for women. She would comment about my appearance to every single stranger she could. Doctors, Target employees, other kids, etc. Whenever she was forced to buy me clothing, she would comment to every worker how nothing looked good on me because I was ugly and fat. Then she would proceed to insult the workers. I always felt so ashamed by both actions that I could never look anyone in the eye. I could feel their pity radiating out and it was humiliating. I didn't want anyone to feel bad for me. I didn't want their dang sympathy. I didn't want to be a major point of ridicule. It has led to a lifetime of having too much pride. It's hard to laugh at myself now and I take myself way too seriously. I struggle to act less serious, but I spent so much time being laughed at. I can't take it and I hate it when anyone talks crap about anyone, even if they deserve it. I have openly refused to trash talk a non-public figure for a long time. It's always toxic, especially if you wouldn't say it to their face. My mother would also use her first language to openly insult people all the time. She bled entitlement. It was horrific. I'm so sorry. You deserve therapy. Love. My aunt is a Karen. Quite frankly, both our families flat out ignore her. She has no relationship with her kids. We didn't realize how much it impacted our lives until we grew up and saw that kind of behavior just makes everyone hate you. The only people that put up with her is Karen's husband and my mom, her sister. Even then the marriage is basically done. The number of times I heard the squeaky wheel gets the grease just makes me cringe to look back on. She was so proud of it every time too. Then I grew up and got a service job and it immediately sunk in. The squeaky wheel gets replaced. The bare freaking minimum to just get them to shut up and get out the door. And you remembered from that point on as a problem. So in the end, everyone hates her, including her own children. I have many patients who are children and their Karen mothers are probably the worst part of my job. I feel bad for the kids and husband the most, to be honest. My mom is like 10% Karen, 70% when she is hungry or upset. It's really embarrassing. Just deal with the mother as calmly as you can and give the kid some candy or something. It's utterly humiliating, especially when people are staring. I grew up in Texas but my parents are originally from Tennessee. When we were visiting Tennessee once, she remarked about how few Tennessee state flags were flown compared to the number that you see in Texas, so she thought they could use a little more state pride. She wrote letters to a few congressmen and I think even the governor's office to tell them to fly more flags. The next time we visited she'd point out every Tennessee flag we saw. Obviously you couldn't prove it was because of her, but admittedly there were a lot more that trip. TLDR. My mom asked to speak with the manager of a whole state and got her way. This was a cute pit stop on a road of narcissism and sadness. Thanks for the story. My mom is a Karen to service people sometimes. She can range from mildly rude to a total monster at times. I used to make excuses, like one time when she worked as a realtor and in the middle of buying something retail, stepped away a bit to take a phone call. The lady had this obvious "Are you kidding?" That couldn't wait another minute to finish this kinda expression. I tried to smooth it over like, oh sorry, she's at work always even when she's not at work kinda thing. Lady responded, it's still rude and tbh. That was the first moment I realized, yeah, my mom is rude. Now if she's unreasonable I straight up tell her off. Usually ends in the two of us fighting and me apologizing to whoever just got yelled at. The worst was after my grandma died. She took her feelings out on everyone. After her being rude to a waitress for no reason. My brother told me to ease up since she just lost her mom. I replied, every one of us here just lost a person we love, but they gives her no right to treat others like crap. Especially for no reason. Yup, grief is no excuse to act like that. Maybe the person she's yelling at also lost someone. My mom was slowly treading down the path to Karenhood. I would just hang my head and be embarrassed, but I didn't really know why it was so wrong. Well, a few years in retail fixed that right the frick up. So when that crap started up again I calmly explained that she's getting pissy at the wrong person and has to follow the same rules everyone else does. She shouldn't expect special treatment just because she's angry. Fortunately, she took the road less traveled and made an effort to be more understanding and calm. You have to realize no matter how many times you tell them their behavior is wrong or that they're just wrong in general, it will get you nowhere. I cannot tell you how many times my mom has said some ridiculous crap, and if you say anything other than yeah I agree, she plays the victim card. Usually indicative of a personality disorder. My mom will always exaggerate everything. She's got to keep up with her friends while they complain about how their kids are doing drugs, shoplifting, sneaking out. My mom talks about how I said the word crap and makes it seem like I cussed out an adult right before murdering them. I'm almost an adult and I'm not allowed to swear. And yes, the child swear words count too. Any word that can be used as an insult counts. I would be way too tempted to embarrass the crap out of her by waiting until the next time she's with the friends and starts in about you start exclaiming, Mom, that's not half as bad as what you've said about friend, other friend, third friend behind their backs, and then possibly give a nice little ditty about some awful remark made about them. Freaking terrible. She would yell at any person trying to help her if they said anything she just didn't like or agree with. Not only do I have anxiety from all that horse crap, but I also now go out of my way to be nice to anyone providing me a service as much as I can. I also make it my mission to make them laugh so they can be comfortable. My husband and I like to trade stories of when we can get people to smile or laugh. One time that sticks with me is when my couch was being delivered by Massus. I was just in the living room doing my usual crap of saying funny things and just being my weird self trying to make the two guys comfortable in my home. One of the guys stopped as he was cleaning up all the plastic that the couch was wrapped in and said to me, "Thank you for being so nice. Most people don't even look at us." I was floored. Not for the compliment, but that people would treat another human being that way. Just terrible. Also, shout out to my dad for always teaching me to be kind. My husband and I once took him out to Outback Steakhouse for his birthday, and when the waiter came to take our order my dad insisted he sit down in the booth next to him because he didn't think he should have to stand to wait on us. I know that's where I get my cuteness from, but I love it. Being kind takes no effort. My mom will always want to see the manager for whatever slight thing. Once she waited in line at the service desk for something like half an hour because she thought she was overcharged a few cents for 2 bottles of dish liquid that was on sale. Then she gets up there to complain and she discovers that she was actually undercharged quite a bit. So she complained about not paying enough, and the manager said he would have to write up the cashier for the undercharge, but she can have the items. Like, who wastes that much of their life on this stuff? She picked me up from the airport when I was coming back from a trip to apply to graduate school, and she accidentally parked in the overnight lot. When she went through the gate, the attendant said $20. She blew up and threw an unholy fit. The entire car was shaking. She was going to get them fired somehow. I was just trying not make eye contact as I was really embarrassed by this. I am bound for graduate school and my white trash mother is screaming at parking lot attendants because she parked in the wrong lot. The attendants finally just raised the gate and she gunned it out of the lot. And to this day she brings up this story as if it was a win. My dad is a Karen. KFC once forgot to put barbecue sauce in our order and he spent a full half hour writing an angry email. Next time I went in with him to get KFC he had a printout to scan for store credit. He also enjoys yelling at CS reps on the phone, especially when they're in a foreign call center. To be fair to him, he yells on the phone even when he's being happy. I can hear him from outside the house, but even if it's not malicious there's no way it doesn't come across that way on the other end. If I'm in a store or restaurant and I witness a Karening, is there anything I can do to help? Seems like any intervention would only raise her Karenness. Although I don't mind taking some heat off a poor worker. Any ideas? Real or hilarious? Tell her that her behavior is ruining your dining, shopping, whatever experience and demand to speak with her manager. My mom once had some strong Karen tendencies, but she started channeling that Karen energy into activism, community service, and advocating for people, and it morphed into assertiveness and tenacity rather than rudeness. Honestly, she's an inspiration to me, because she took what was an issue for her and turned it into something positive that helps others. Lots of nodding along and desperately searching for an opportunity to make a joke that lightens the mood or changes the subject. Very rarely am I asked outright for my thoughts, and when I am I make an absurd joke to make it clear I have no interest in discussing it. She asked me how I voted once, so I said I was confused by the ballot, so I just checked everything off. That's what I was supposed to do, right? I also don't make a lot of eye contact during those topics, and especially if I'm not the only one there I kind of distance myself a little, engage with my nieces or the dog or something until I hear the topic has changed. Probably too late to the thread for anyone to notice, but let me just say that it is absolutely miserable. I can't go anywhere with her without her having some kind of meltdown. She can't even go to a restaurant without complaining about something. Nothing is ever her fault. Everything is always someone else's fault, especially if they're an employee. She thinks the world owes her everything on a silver platter, and if she doesn't get it right now, then they're practically conspiring against her to make her life miserable. A basic example, one time we went to Burger King's drive-thru, and after she's already paid, she asks the guy who hands her the food for a cup of Big King sauce on the side. They tell her they can't do that because they'd have to charge her for it. She responds to this by practically ripping the bag out of his hand and screaming, "Oh, I thought this was Burger King. Whatever happened to have it your way, B," and then peeling out of the drive-thru. Of course I chewed her out about it, but it's no use. She'll never change. She's infuriating to be around. Jeez, I'm sorry you have to be witness to that. At least Karens do a great job at teaching their child how not to parent. I am constantly wondering if the next white woman to go viral for calling the police on an unsuspecting black person will be my mother. My mom was actually named Karen. Her hair is the cut of actual mean Karen. Living with her was heck. She is no longer in my life. I have so many crazy horror stories I doubt many would believe me. She was a radiologist, so she has frick you money to top it all off. IT was awful. So bad my sister and I convenienced my very Catholic father to divorce her. He was an attorney and she managed to get her doctor pals to label her disabled, so my father, who earned much less than her, had to pay her $270,000 for the privilege. The final straw for me was she only paid any attention to my daughter. When we had my son she wanted nothing to do with him. Dang, that's depressing as heck. My sister's is a Karen, so entitled and self-obsessed. She's never not sent a meal back at a restaurant. I figure she's eating a lot of spit. And now the Boogers and CM song from South Park is stuck in my head. It's like having a boss more than a mom. A boss who micromanages you from sweeping the floor to eating your pasta. A boss who complains non-stop about anything and everything. A boss who always says bad things to the seer dad behind his back. She never runs out of things to ask you to do. It's a torture. I don't even want to talk to her or stay in the same room with her. Thankfully I was able to leave home now. We still fight when I come to visit my parents, but it's seldom now cause I don't visit them much. My sister's Mill has another sister who is a Karen. She proves the stereotype beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have no idea how she hasn't had a stress-induced heart attack from that woman yet. My stepmom is a certified Karen. Honestly, it is mortifying to go anywhere in public with her. We went to Disney last year and she made this huge fuss that we weren't staying at the freaking Ritz-Carlton. Then she loudly complained to the dining cast members at Pop Century what a dump s when they didn't cook her specialty burger before everyone else's order. The kicker is that my husband and I, footed the bill for a lot of their vacation, but she never once said thank you. My real mom died of cancer and never would have been such a Karen. Sad. Infuriating. Both my mum and dad are awful to shop assistants. Despite the fact that I worked in the sector for 20 years, neither of my parents read shelf signage properly. But if there's a price discrepancy, it's always the fault of the cashier, and they're very fond of the "you're not doing your job properly" argument. Even if it's a penny difference, they'll kick off. I've seen my mum reduce people to tears before. Mum also uses her disability to her advantage and will scream for the manager, throw the "it's because I'm disabled" card around, and will then be nice as anything when the manager appears. They both shoplift too and see nothing wrong with it. I'm more than happy to help my parents with their shopping, but I have to walk away once they go to pay because it's so exhausting. The shoplift part seems sorta criminal to me. My mom isn't really a full-on Karen, but if she is very hungry she gets hangry to a new level. She'll get because she can't decide what to order, then take it out on the waiters. They get a pissy attitude from my mom and I feel so bad. I want to apologize to them, but then again that would make my mom mad at me. Also, when she is in public she'll randomly stare at people and be like, does she not own a hairbrush, or some other comment like that. It's extremely embarrassing and I want to hide under a rock whenever she does it. I've started telling her to stop, but then she gets upset with me like, what, they can't hear me, but I clearly saw them look at you when you said it. Ugh. Any advice? My mom represents the complete opposite of a Karen besides being named Karen. TBH, the stereotype gets a bit annoying because she really is a reasonable and understanding person. Love my mama. My mom's a semi-Karen, but my aunt is the uber Karen. So when there's a family dinner with her present, I make sure to sit as far away as possible because the embarrassment is too much to handle. Her thing is to try to create her own meal by using elements of at least 3 other meals on the menu. I want the herb crusted chicken, but roasted instead of grilled, and the sauce from the pork tenderloin, but can you put it on the side? And instead of grilled asparagus, can you do the pot stick as appetizer for the side? But only 2 because I can't eat 4 and I don't want to get charged for 4. She does this at low-end chain restaurants. The goal is to make sure they mess up the order somehow and then she relishes sending it back. Then as the waiter is leaving she says, loud enough for them to hear, I mean, it's pretty hard to screw up. I've seen her accidentally create a Franken meal that happened to be really close to something already on the menu. That's when she makes a few last-minute modifications or makes up a deadly allergy to something so it remains complicated. The problem with being raised by a Karen is that sometimes, you too are a Karen. Even though I worked in the restaurant and retail and call center industries to put myself through college, sometimes my own Karen will still rear her ugly head. Example, some poor soul at the IRS call center had to hear my ugly voice in the background while my husband was talking to them on the phone. Afterward I felt awful that I'll let my stress get the best of me. If I could send that woman a pack of beer and a manicure I would. My poor husband also. Most of the time I am not this way, but I had to teach myself how to behave because my mom was a terrible example growing up. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.